love everybody and forgive even those who have and is the worst, considered the worst of the worst. Just love God, love yourself, and love your enemies.
You're listening to Inspire Me with Jay, where science meets spirit and stories of meditation and the near death experience awaken what's possible within us all. I'm Jay, and this is your moment to be inspired. Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay. I'm your host, Jay Spillers, and we have a guest today, Tammy. She's going to be sharing her near death experience. Tammy, how are you?
I am doing good. I'm very happy to be here today.
I'm doing pretty good too. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and then get into your near-death experience?
Okay, so I am uh-oh, why'd it go foggy like that? Oh, a fly landed on my camera. Sorry. That was funny. You're like it landed right in the exact spot. So my name is Tammy, and should I mention anything about my podcast or
Sure.
what
Yeah,
I
go
do
ahead.
now?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
fine.
so I am the host of Raw Conscious Talk podcast, where I cover probably the same topics as Jay does. And so that's currently what I'm doing in my life, but I am also a lifelong experiencer. And before I go into my near death experience, I do need to give a little background to understand things a little bit better. And I travel full time in an RV. I'm currently in Trinidad, Colorado, so I'm in my RV right now. And so that's about it. I got two dogs and a cat. I have a 15-year-old son that travels with me, and this is my life.
So, what was the near-death experience that you had?
Okay, so I'm gonna go a little bit backwards so that people understand the difference between what I've experienced and what I experienced at this time. So for me, I I started being able to speak to an entity when I was 3 years old, and an entity that I eventually called God later in life. There was no name. I don't even think that that was even something thought of to even know a name. But I eventually called it God, and it was something that I communicated with every day, all day, my whole entire life. And by the time I was 5, I began to have out of body experiences. So in my out of body experiences, I would be in the same place as where I was at when I came out of body. I would see my body laying there. I would be able to leave and go through the wall and go outside of that location of where I was at. So so when I had this near death experience, it was completely different, a completely different realm and a completely different place than, because I have been to other places, but not like this. And so, so for me, I had had a severe head injury, um, through, I don't really want to go into details, but it was an attack. I was attacked and I had a severe head injury that was, I don't know what was happening to me, but for a good 6 months, I would have these moments where I would completely black out and then come back seconds later. So this specific day, I wouldn't go anywhere in those blackouts. This specific day, I had went to go sit on a bed where in a room. I was at a protective home at that time to keep me protected from the person that attacked me. And so I went into my assigned bedroom and I sat down on my bed and I didn't do anything more than just lean back on the headboard, like pretend like this is the headboard behind me. And when I leaned back on my headboard, immediately I was transported to a place that I call a heavenly realm or a paradise place. And so in that place, I was instantaneously with these two beings, one on the right side, one on the left side, and they looked human, but they were brighter, is the only way that I can describe it. There was this brightness to them. Like I was like, I couldn't see me, but if I had to give an example, it would be more like I was black and white and they were in color. But that's the only way I can describe it. It wasn't that I was in black and white, but they were bright. And so we're walking on this dirt road. Now, on this dirt road, along the side of the road, there's flowers, there's trees, there's, grass. And then off to my right in the distance was this castle like structure that was like it was very old timey. I don't really know how to describe it. The building was almost like it was in black and white because it was stone, so it was old looking. It wasn't painted. It wasn't something that was painted. It was all natural. And so we're walking down this road, and of course, the first thing that I notice is the grass, the flowers, and the trees. And so in this experience, I just start freaking out, like I couldn't believe the colors of the flowers, the colors of the grass, and the leaves on the trees were the most beautiful colors that you could ever see. They're not colors that I can even describe to you because it was almost like they were multiple colors, but they were translucent all at the same time, like almost like crystal, but you could see beautiful colors through them. So the grass was a green grass, but it wasn't a green like the green here. It's almost like our eyes can't see the right colors here on the grass and stuff like that. But the blades of grass were just they were translucent also, like glass, like crystal, but it was the most beautiful green that you've ever seen. And the leaves on the trees were the most beautiful leaves that were also like crystal and almost like translucent, and it was the most vibrant, beautiful green that you could ever see. But what was mostly catching my attention were the flowers. So we're walking and I'm just freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, like look at these flowers. They're just so beautiful, and as you walk, you just it's almost like they were following you. You could see the beauty of the flower the entire time you're walking. You never see like the back of the flower, you see the front of the flower at all times. It's like following you. And everything seemed alive, is the only way I can describe it. It was like you could it was like the it was alive, is the only way I can describe it. It was just, I mean, obviously flowers and grass and trees are alive, but you could actually see that they were living. I guess you could say that they were just living and they were flowing, and it was just so beautiful, and I couldn't stop freaking out about those flowers and the trees. I'm like, the trees, I was just freaking out. So as we're walking down this road, like kind of like heading towards that building, but we never made it to that building, I looked behind me like this. And when I looked behind me, there were these light beings that were human shaped, but there was nothing but light. They were just shaped like humans. And they were like, it was by the thousands. Like it was as far as the eye could see, it was just these light beings, like all in rows that went far back behind you. And so I'm like, of course, freaking out. I'm just freaking out the whole time in this experience because it was just, it was so beautiful. Everything was so beautiful. And I remember at one point, I look over my shoulder and I notice that we're not casting a shadow. And immediately, when I realized the three of us that are walking on this road are not casting a shadow, I immediately say to, I don't know, the being on the right, the being on the left, I don't know which way my head turned. I was like, wow, we're not even casting a shadow. It's so bright here, you know, because it was so bright. It was just full of light. Like everything was just bright and full of light, you know, it was just bright. And so the one being, and this is the one and only time that I remember a communication, which wasn't, we weren't speaking out of our mouth. We were just speaking without speaking. And so the one entity that, or whatever these beings were that were walking with me, it said, yeah, there's no darkness here. And I'm like, what? Wait a minute. So I literally crouched down on the ground and I cuffed my hand on the ground and I peeked through to see if I could block the light that was just surrounding us out of the, through the, cuffing my hand. And it was still just as bright underneath my hand as it was in the brightness that was around us. So when I turned my head back to look ahead again, immediately right in front of me was, which wasn't there before, was now this big, gigantic, huge light that was similar to the sun, but it wasn't the sun. And to give you an example of how big this light was, if you've seen a sunset, I'm originally from Southwest Florida, so if you've seen a sunset, you'll see the whole horizon of the water from one end to the other, and then right in the middle, you'll have that sunset that's going down beyond the water. This sun literally took up the whole entire view in front of me. It would be like the sun was as big as the entire horizon of the water line. It was just huge. And as soon as I saw that light, I knew that that was God. I knew that that's who I had been speaking to since I was 3 years old. That was that was it right there. And the feeling that I got, not that I didn't get a feeling before, but what I felt when I made eye contact with that light is I immediately felt this unconditional love. The unconditional love doesn't even touch it, okay? It is the ultimate of ultimate love that is doesn't even closely touch anything on earth of love. And it was everywhere. Like it was in everything. It was in the trees, it was in the flowers, it was in the grass, it was in these two entities, it was in the air, it was in everything. And it was so overwhelming of this love that there literally is no words to put to it. You cannot put words on the feeling that washes over you of that feeling. And at the same time as feeling that love, there was like there was like there was a sense of music, but it's not like music here. It was music that was it was music that was, how do I explain this? It was music that was in the essence of that love. That's the only way I could describe it. There's no music here. You'll never ever even be able to come close to the music, the tone, the you'll never ever be able to duplicate it here. And it's almost, to even use the word music, that's 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 putting it at some sort of a level of something. There was no level to the the sound. That wasn't really a sound. It was just a tone or vibration. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it was. All I know is it was the most beautiful sound. That's the only word, only English human word I can put in it. Is it was a sound that was that essence of that love, basically. And so as soon as I saw that, I instantly looked at the being either on my left or my right. Like I instantly looked and I said, I can't wait to go back and tell everyone. And I said it just like that. Like, I'm like, I can't wait to go back and tell everyone. And so what happened right at that point is I was instantly back in my body. I was instantly still sitting in the same position. I was sitting on my bed with my back up against the backboard. And immediately I wanted to get up and tell the other girls that were also in the home, because there was about 6 of us total in this home that was under protective, being protected. And so I get up out of my bed, I go into the other room, and I have to explain this part because you got to understand this protective home was a home where it was like a 4-bedroom house. When you come through the front door, there's a dining room here, there's a second or some sort of a living room here. The master bedroom was on this side, and then us girls' bedrooms were on this side. And so, and then straight ahead of you is the kitchen. So when we would walk in the house and pass by each other, we would never not say something to each other. We all knew each other very, very well, living under the same roof for the time frame that we had already been living. And so I go out to speak to these, who's coming now towards me to pass in the hallway area from out of the bedroom area. And I can't speak. I can't get even one word out of my mouth. It was like there was this invisible thing like that on me where I could not speak. I could not get a word out of my mouth. And at the same time, I could feel that light that I just left was like a bubble around me. Like the light came back with me. It came back, and it was like I was in this bubble of this light and I couldn't speak. And so these girls are walking right by me, like they can't even see me. Okay. It was like they couldn't even see me. We would never walk by each other and not say anything at all, even if it's just a, hey, what's up? You know what I mean? We would speak to each other something as we're passing by. I couldn't speak. So I just immediately turned back around, went back in my room, sat on my bed, and said to myself, I'm just going to sit here until till whatever this is that's around me right now leaves me so that I will be able to speak. And so I sat there for about 45 minutes. And when I could feel the relief of the bubble of light that was around me, like fading away, I said to myself inside my head, I said, I wonder if I can speak yet. So I just spoke out like a couple simple words out of my mouth, and words came out. So, of course, I jumped up, ran into the other room, started telling the girls what just happened to me. And in my mind, okay, this is my mind, I thought that all I would have to do is speak it out of my mouth, and they would instantly experience what I just experienced, if that makes sense. So as all this is falling out of my mouth, and all this is, I'm telling them everything, the flowers, the trees, the two entities that were with me, the light beings, I'm telling them the whole experience. They were looking at me like I just lost my mind. Like they were like, yeah, you're crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they did not take it in a positive way, in any kind of a way, because when I came back, whoever I was before I sat on that bed and leaned back on that headboard, I was no longer that person anymore. Like, I don't even know who I was before that. But what I can say is, whoever I was, I'll never be that person again. I am what just happened to me instantly changed me instantaneously. I was a whole, completely different person. And there was no way that I could even try to be whoever I was before that, because I was instantly changed. And that's the only way I can describe it. And it wasn't like I was like this horror, like some sort of like horrible person, or any kind of, I was just what appeared to people as being normal, I guess you could say. I appeared to people with some sort of normalness. After that experience, I lost my mind over what I experienced. It was nothing like any place that I had ever left and went to in other other experiences, which I've never went to a place like this. Like, when I would have out of body experiences, I would go to spaces that were not of form, if that makes sense. There was no form. It was just another place that, one of the places that I would go to, I call it the white room, because it was all white. It was all white, and I would be speaking to what I call angels, but I didn't physically see angels with my eyes or anything. It would just be a presence that was there that communicated with me, and I communicated with it. But this room that I call the white room, it didn't have any walls, and it didn't have any doors or windows. But the only way I can describe it is, it was the white room. That's a place that I've went to since I was a small child, and continued to go to throughout even my adult life. It's just the white room. And I've been to other spaces similar to that, but I've never had an experience where I left and went to a, I don't know if you call it a physical place. The only reason why I say physical place, because there was flowers, there was trees, there were grass, there was that building off to the distance. You know what I mean? It had a dirt road that we were walking on. That's the only reason why I say it's a physical place. And so that started my journey of where I am now to this day. I couldn't keep my mouth shut. Like, I literally lost the few people that were in my life at that time. They all left me. They all cut me out of their life. Any job that I went to, I couldn't keep my mouth shut. So I had issues with jobs. I had issues just wherever I went. I had issues because this that happened to me, that experience was so real. It was definitely way more real than here. It's like this is black and white and that is color. This is not real. And I already had that sense of feeling that this isn't real here before that experience. I knew that my home was somewhere else because I had left and went to like the White Room and other places before, but this solidified it. I knew that this wasn't my home and that my home is on the other side. That's what I call it. I call it the other side. Even when I would go to the White Room, I called it on the other side. I would be on the other side. So so it actually negatively affected my life pretty much from there on out with like people because I couldn't find anybody like me. I could not find anybody that had experienced anything like that. I had to question my sanity for a really, really long time. And then 5 years ago, I found my very first, and I wasn't even looking because I never even heard of near death experiences, but I found my very first near death experience. And when I watched that near death experience, I watched every single, because the thing is these people would describe the same places where I went exactly the way that I described it. They knew about the flowers, they knew about the trees, they knew about the love, they knew everything that happened to me in that experience. And I ultimately ended up spending at least 4 of the 5 this past year. I haven't been focusing so much on watching every near death experience that post online. I've been more focused on other things like my channel and stuff like that. But I probably watched close to 3,000 near death experiences. And every one of them, they're not exactly the same, but a lot of what they say is exactly the same. When they start talking about the flowers, the trees, the grass, and stuff like that, and the love that's like the music in the air, I know that these people are not lying or making some sort of story up. You can't make it up. Those people definitely experienced exactly what I experienced, and it lit my whole life up. I'm like, I finally found my people. That's how I felt. I finally found my people. I had no idea that there were other people out there like me that experienced something like that. So, yeah, so that was my journey, and that's what got me started. And I have been the same person from that day that that experience happened. And I never, ever, ever could go back to whoever or whatever I was before that. It was instant life changing. Instantly, I was a completely different person. Almost like what people talk about where they have a walk in. I don't know if you've heard that term before,
Hmm.
but it's almost like I had some sort of a walk in that happened because I was never the same again. It was life changing for me. Life changing. So that's my experience. That's my story.
Well, was it sort of like you were born again or born of the Spirit? Because a lot of times I wrote about this in my book that like there's a
Mhm.
scripture in the Bible that talks about you must be born again to enter the kingdom of heaven. And it came to me like several years ago that, well, in a sense, when you're in the
Mhm.
light,
Mhm.
experiencing being immersed in that
Mhm.
unconditional love, that is essentially for many people their born
Mhm.
again experience to enter the kingdom in that sense.
Mhm. Yes. So I'm going to give you a little backstory of an experience that happened to me 2 weeks earlier in a church, because this home that I was in was a church-based home, and I didn't grow up in the church. I never was part of the church other than as a really young child. I remember our church bus coming and picking us up, and we would, and this was, I maybe went 10 times as a child to this church bus thing. And we would just be put in a room full of kids, and they would give us like cookies and juice or whatever. And I was not connected to whatever was going on in that room, because I had severe people anxiety. So I had a hard time being around people or even children at that time. And so I was literally, the only thing I can remember about that church bus experience was the cookies and the drink. I don't, if they taught anything, I have no idea if they taught anything. So that was my childhood church experience. But in this home that I was in, we were required to go to church on Sunday with the, us as a group with the home to go to a church. And so because I had been a lifelong experience of what I call the other side, and a lifelong, since the age of 3, that's as far back as I can remember, with talking to who I called God every day, all day. I went to that church and I had no clue what was going on. You know how the church is set up, you sit in seats, you got this big stage, you got this one single man that goes up and he gives some sort of a message. I was clueless of anything about what this man was speaking about. But after about my third time going there, um, and I'm just going to step back just a little. When I was in middle school, I thought that everybody left their body. I thought that everybody went to rooms like the light room and stuff like that. I thought it was normal. I thought it was all humans did this and this was normal life. So in middle school, I went up to the couple of girls that would tend to hang out with me here and there in the morning before class started. And I had traveled somewhere the night before, um, that was like a new experience for me, I guess you could say. So I went to school to tell these girls, where I traveled the night before. And I'm having this conversation so freely and open with them, not realizing that it wasn't normal, if that makes sense. And so I'm going through my whole what just happened to me the night before experience. And then I'm like, so where did you girls travel, last night? And they're like, yeah, I don't travel. And the other girl's like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, is everybody doesn't do this? Is this not normal? You know what I mean? Like I literally thought that was everyday life for everybody. I was completely clueless that I'm like singled out here and I'm the only one. And so when that happened, there was this, having that knowledge is the only way I can describe it. Having that knowledge, there was some sense of a separation of a separate, some sort of a separation that happened, okay, at that time. When I realized, oh my gosh, this isn't normal, this isn't everyday life. I even said the words out of my mouth to these girls. I was like, do you not talk to God every day, all day? And they're like, no. And I'm like, what? Wait a minute. You don't talk to God every day, all day? You're not like in this constant communication with God every day. I was shocked by what these girls were saying to me, because I had no idea what I was experiencing, what I was doing was not every day, all people, all humans, all kids, all everybody. That was life. That was normal. It was my normal. Okay. So when I realized it wasn't normal, The only way I can describe it is there was some sort of like separation that happened. Not that I was separated, but there was some sort of something that happened inside me spiritually that that I can't even put words into. Okay, so there, I knew it was obvious that something, a door, some sort of door closed. Okay, I didn't ever stop talking to God every day, all day. That was my whole entire life, so I didn't know anything different. But what I knew at that point is I need to keep my mouth shut and I need to keep this a secret. I need to not make this public. This is my thing. This is me. And I felt like I get to talk to God, every day, all day.
Yeah.
And so, but there was some sort of door shut. And that's the only way I can describe it. So I went to this church. Now, that's 2 weeks before this experience of the near death experience. Um, I went to this church about 3 services. And now at the end of the service, every time the man up on the stage would say, if anybody wants to come up to the front of the stage and get prayer to to for your for you to receive in your heart Jesus or God or however they said it. I don't remember how they said it. Um uh Go ahead and come on up, blah 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 blah. Well, at that very moment, I had this thought in my head. I was like, yeah, I closed a door back when I was a teenager, and I don't, that I've never opened that door back up. Maybe that's what I didn't know what this guy was talking about. I lived in a whole nother world than any of these people my whole entire life. So I'm assuming that what he's talking about is that door that closed when I was 13 years old. Okay. So I go up there to, to get prayed over and do whatever the ritual was that they had for you to do there. And this lady came, and it was an elderly lady. She laid her hands on my head and she said, I don't know, just some simple prayer. I can't tell you what the words were, but what happened to me is all of a sudden I open my eyes and there's like this veil. That's the only way I can describe it. It wasn't a veil, but it was like all of a sudden there was this veil. The only way I can describe it is like a wedding veil. Okay. I could see through it, but I couldn't see through it crystal clear. Okay. So this veil started like, I don't know if it lifted or if it started to fade. I don't know exactly what happened, but all of a sudden, as it's leaving me, I'm beginning to see the stage again where I'm kneeled down at. But the stage now is very bright. It's the same stage, same room, building that I'm in, but it's very bright.
You're listening to the Inspire Me with Jay podcast. Please do like and subscribe to the channel, bringing hope and inspiration to the world.
So once this veil or whatever it was, the fog, I don't know, lifted, I could tell right away that I was the only one. It was like I all of a sudden knew everything in that room instantaneously. I looked at the people next to me because there were several people that came up to the front, and I could see literally that nobody else, I couldn't physically see it. I saw all of a sudden with different eyes, I guess you could say. And I could tell that nobody else in that room just experienced what I experienced. In fact, this flood of knowing is the only way that I can describe it. I could tell that not that I could tell, I could feel And no, I knew everything worldwide instantaneously. I knew that that nobody in the whole entire world knows what I all of a sudden know. And what that knowing is, I can't tell you. All I know is it instantaneously opened. I'm pretty sure that door that I closed when I was 13 years old. That's the only way I can describe it. I all of a sudden knew everything. And I don't even know how to put what everything is into words, because everything is just is there's no words to put into what everything means. And when I had that experience, that in itself knocked me off my it was a life-changing event, I guess you could say. Just that event alone was a life-changing event, and I knew that nobody else there or in that building or in the whole entire world uh experienced what I experienced. Is the only way that I could describe it. And I believe that that door that I closed when I was 13 years old just flew wide open. And now I'm back to who I was, you know, whatever that was, from when I was 13 years old. And so after that experience, I didn't, it wasn't, it was a door being opened, is the only way that I can describe it. And when I've read the whole Bible multiple times, from back to front, front to back, over and over and over again. And the only experience that I can really relate it with is when Jesus is having the conversation with Nicodemus, and Nicodemus says, well, how am I supposed to go back into my mother's womb and be born again? And Jesus says, no, you're born once of water and you're born once of the Spirit. And so that was the only scripture in the Bible that made me feel like that experience was that experience. And so, and even though that experience was as profound as it was in that church, it didn't even touch the 2 weeks later, literally 2 weekends later, is when that NDE experience happened. And so I was still, sorry, I'm out in the woods right now, so there might be a random four-wheeler or dirt bike that goes by. But that experience, I was still the same person as I was when I walked into that church building. I was just back to brand new, is the only way I can describe it. So when you talk about it being some sort of like church experience that would be something that Jesus would speak about, that was my experience. I was still the same person. I didn't change. I was still whoever I was when I walked into that church building. I was the same person walking out of that church building, except for I just had a mind-blowing experience that I can't even explain. And so I just went on with normal life, is the only way that I can describe it. I still went back to the home, hung out with the girls the same way I hung out with the girls, talked the same way as I talked with the girls, and I was just the same person. But that experience was permeating in my brain of what just happened to me at the church. But the near-death experience, I was not the same. It was like I literally lost my mind. And I've said for years, you have to lose your mind to find your mind. And it was life changing. The NDE experience was life changing. I was, from that moment on, whoever I was before, I was never the same again. I lost all my friends. My family didn't want to have anything to do with me because I could not keep my mouth shut. I tried to figure out any way that I could possibly explain it so that they could feel what I felt there. And it it never was like that with anybody that I knew. It never was like that. It was, I'm going to close this window. It I was never the same again. I've never went back. I'm still never went back to whoever I was before after the NDE experience. It was life changing. There's no words to put into it. Whoever I was, I'm not that person. And I'll never be whoever. I don't even remember who that person is.
But
I'm a
maybe
completely different person.
Hmm.
Go ahead.
I was going to say maybe the church service opened you up to have the near death experience. So maybe they're connected in a sense.
It's possible, but I can say that when I would speak about my experience in the church, um, they were not very accepting of it. And I felt like being in the church, I felt like the church was still in kindergarten and I somehow had graduated college 100 times over. That's the only way I can figure out how to put it in human words. I just felt like they were stuck. The church was stuck. And I did stick it out with the church for many, many, many years because I thought that they just got to have the experience that I experienced and then they'll be where I'm at. And I went for many years. I even, after being a part of a church for about, I don't know, 3 years, the youth pastor branched off and started his own church and invited whoever in the congregation wanted to come with him. And his wife at that time, he had just recently got married, that we could branch off with him. And there was about 5 of us from the church that branched off and went with him. And the reason why I branched off, made the decision to branch off and go with him, is because he said that his church is going to be based around really going deep into the spiritual realm. So that was like right up my alley. I'm like, oh, finally, people that are going to go where I am, and we're going to be like-minded, you know what I mean? But starting that church and going in that direction, that church was still no different than the other church. And when I would speak about things like my near-death experience and stuff like that, they would tell me that it's witchcraft and that I needed to be delivered. So they would make me go to these things that they called encounters with God, which were like these weekend retreats where you go and you spend a weekend at some like place that's out in the woods and cabins and stuff like that. And they tried to pray it out of me, but I could feel them. I could feel that what they were doing to me was not proper. And I never experienced anything at any of those things where anything different happened to me. I was still the same person that came out of from that near death experience. And then ultimately, the pastors ended up divorcing. And when they divorced, I never went back to another church again after that. And it just, I couldn't find people like me. I literally did not find people like me until I found those that had near death experiences. I was so happy. I was through the roof, so happy that I finally found people like me. And that's the closest that I've been able to find, is people that have went through a near-death experience. They experienced what I experienced, and they came back and they were changed. Most near-death experiencers, whatever job profession they had, they left and went into a whole nother direction of that which is, pertaining to that love that you feel from the other side. And most of the time they end up even in divorce with their spouse, because their spouse can't even relate with them anymore. And so those are the only people that I've been able to find that are like me. That's the only way I can describe it. They're like me. And I was so thankful and grateful to find these people. I was so thankful and grateful that finally I'm not crazy. I had to question my sanity. Because I could not be normal. I could not function with people in any type of a normal capacity. I was changed, and I was not the same ever again.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I had written my book, paralleling the Bible and the near-death experience, and like everything you told me in your experience, I'm like, there's nothing that in any way contradicted the Bible. It seems like it supports the Bible, like going to this heavenly
mhm,
place that's like paradise, so it's like
mhm,
I've always kind of understood like why so many in the church are so afraid of this experience. There is more of an opening
mhm,
now than there was like 20 or 30 years ago. And there have been people in
mhm,
the churches that have had near-death experiences, but it seems like there's still
mhm,
kind of an ambivalence in a lot of church circles. And I don't really know why it is,
mhm,
because it's kind of like if you're in the church, you talk about heaven, you read about heaven,
mhm,
but it's like here's someone that
mhm,
has firsthand experience that's been to heaven. Why would you want to listen to that? I don't know,
mhm.
you know?
Yeah, I agree. And every message that comes from near-death experiences are messages to come back and just love people unconditionally, live with a forgiving heart. And, that is something that I've had my whole life. But I can obviously see and sense and have experienced that that's not the way that this world operates at all. It's it's very it's a very cruel world that we live in, and there's a lot of cruelty. And even in the church, I saw a lot of cruelty that was happening amongst the people in the church. And so Jesus's message was love God and love your neighbor as yourself. Forgive even your enemy. But that doesn't exist in the church. That's not something that exists in the church. And so all near death experiencers, once they come back, they have that knowledge and they change their life and everything about it to implement that, to be unconditionally loving, to be a forgiving person, and even your enemies, you know. And I had a real hard time, because with all that I've experienced throughout my whole childhood from 3 years old and on, I I was a very, very, very forgiving person, no matter what. And when I started going to the church, and the church is teaching about, you know, if you don't accept Jesus Christ, if you don't accept Jesus Christ in your life as your Lord and Savior, then you will go to this place called hell. And my church was a church that spoke very fervently, I guess that's the word for it, on the end times. The end's coming. The end's going to be here. End's going to be here soon. End's coming. And so my what I would have internally going on inside me was like, if Jesus comes back and takes just those people that have accepted him as their Lord and Savior, well, then I'm going to have to stay. I have to stay here so I can reach these people that are being left behind. Because even the worst of the worst that has happened to me, which really, 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 really bad things have happened to me, okay? Think of some really, really, really bad stuff. It's happened to me in my childhood, okay? Even them, I would never think that their punishment would be to be in torment for all of eternity. Never would I, even the worst of the worst that has happened to me, I didn't even want them to have to experience that. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to have to stay. That's how, this is the conversations that I would be having with God in my head is, well, I can't go then. If Jesus comes back and takes us all up in the air, I can't go. I have to stay here. Like, because nobody deserves, no matter what they did, the worst of the worst do not deserve to be in eternal torment for all of eternity. And that's how my heart was. You know, even in experiences as a kid, like my stepfather would do really, really, really bad things to me. And I would be in my room sitting, like rocking on the floor. You know, I'd just be holding myself, rocking on the floor. And I could hear my stepfather's thoughts in the other room. And I could hear him saying in his head, why did I do that again? Like, why do I keep doing this to her? You know, those thoughts in his head. I knew that what he was doing to me was something that was controlling him. Because when I heard his thoughts, I knew that he was so upset that he did it again. And I would get up off the floor after him just doing what he did to me and hearing his thoughts. And I would go climb in his lap and I would say, I love you, Daddy. I love you. And I would just cuddle with him because I wanted him to know that he's forgiven. I wanted him to know that he was loved because that's the love that I knew. That's what I had been being taught since I was 3 years old and began speaking with God is love and forgiveness, even your enemy. So there isn't nothing that anybody in this world, no matter how heinous and evil and horrible it is, nobody deserves to be in a place that is of eternal torment. And that's how I feel. I love all people. I can't be around people, but I love them. I just can't be around them because they're not like me. They're just not like me. And you can't be in a place where you have absolutely nothing in common with somebody. You just can't. And that's why most near-death experience people end up in divorce because they have zero in common with their spouse, and their spouse has nothing in common with them. They have no relationship anymore. That person that was there before the near-death experience is not the person that comes back. And so, yeah, I couldn't, why is my phone shaking so much? I can't have hate for even the most heinous of crimes. I have love. And that's all I have. Unconditional love and forgiveness. And that's me. I don't know how to not be me. You know?
But and it's
So
like I saw a near-death experience where um I think her I think her name might have been Pam, but I'm not sure. Can't remember. But in her experience, she was basically told that hell functions more like a purgatory, that it's temporal it's more of a purification kind of thing. And as I understand heaven and hell too, it's more of like a state of your soul, like how healthy your soul is. If you're kind of sick in your soul, dark in your soul, you're going to be at a lower vibration. It's going to be kind of hellish. If you're
Yes.
more in a healthy state, you're going to have more of a heavenly light experience. But it's something
Yes.
that's temporal and it's something that you can expand, that you can grow in.
Hmm.
So even if you're in a low,
Hmm.
unhealthy state, you don't have to stay there forever.
Right. And I agree 100% with you with what you're saying. I am in complete agreement, but that is not the message that the church preaches. That is not the message. The message is eternal torment. You will be eternal tormented for all of eternity if you do not accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. And the thing is I knew Jesus before that. I knew Jesus before I ever stepped foot in that church. And I had a relationship with Jesus. I had a relationship with God. I had that a pure, complete relationship with Jesus, a pure, complete relationship with God. And so when I was being told by the church that I need a middleman before I could have a relationship with God, my brain could not comprehend that. I'm like, what are you talking about? I've had a relationship with Jesus like for my whole life as far as I'm concerned. I started talking to God when I was 3, and none of it made sense to me. The whole message, none of it makes sense to me. And so I eventually, like I said, I eventually left the church, and I've been not in a church since then because I can't handle hearing what these people are being told when in my own personal thoughts is that's not the way that it is at all. And I was scared. I was actually scared for hell, not because I thought I was going to go, but because I was scared to death about all the people that will end up going there, and none of it made sense to me. Like it was a horrible experience of thinking that humans were going to go to some place that was eternal torment. Like that was horrible. I'm like, no, I got to stay here. I got to help these people, and that's
But,
how I felt.
well, even like from what I see, like you look at all the near-death experiences, it seems like 90+% have a positive heavenly experience anyway. And then even of
Hmm.
of the small percentage that go to hell, many of those get rescued out even during the experience itself. You know what I mean?
Right. They get right in
Yeah.
the experience, they get rescued out. Yeah. And so it just I it all I know is that I'm only able to be me, and me is a very loving person that loves all people. No no matter what they've done, no matter where they've been, what they've done and who they are, I still love them with a pure unconditional love. I don't hang out with them. You know what I mean? I don't put myself in danger in any kind of a way, but I can see for me, and this is just personally me, I can see a spark of light in everybody. That spark of light is in everybody, and I can see it. I can see a spark of light in everybody. Nobody is pure darkness. There's nobody pure darkness.
So you do a podcast basically talking about the near-death experience then?
Hmm. I do near death experiences, out of body experiences, astral projecting, any kind of spiritually transformative experience. And we'll even go into like paranormal experiences because I've also experienced many paranormal experiences as a child. And so I do allow people to have an outlet to talk about experiences of that which was the paranormal.
Mm-hmm. Could that be like ghosts and psychic
Mm-hmm.
things and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I haven't had any psychic people or anything like that. I don't know if I fully like gravitate towards like psychic things. Not that I'm against it. I have my own, I can read people everywhere I go. And in fact, I have a very hard time going into grocery stores and stuff like that and shopping because I can hear so many people's thoughts in so many different directions and I don't know how to shut it off. So for me, I have the stores memorized. I get the same things every single time I go into the store, and I go in, grab what I need, and I get out as quick as possible because I can't, it's not like I'm hearing it with my ears. I'm hearing it with my thoughts. So it's not even like I can plug my ears and not hear. I hear conversations here that are going on in people's heads. And I've always been able to do that my whole life. I never not know a time where I cannot hear people in rooms and I don't know how to turn it off. So I avoid a lot of places as much as possible so that I can have like some sort of sanity, you know? So it's not that I'm against psychics and stuff like that. I just don't, I guess I'm not really, I'm not focused on let me find psychic people. I'm more of about the experiences of going on the other side, having experiences of going on the other side, not so much of what people's gifts are, I guess.
And so, what is the name of your podcast?
Conscious Talk Podcast. Sometimes people get it confused and they say consciousness, but it's not. It's just raw Conscious Talk Podcast. And as soon as you put the name in, it will pop up. It'll pop up right away. I've done some fantastic interviews with people. I'm about to do another interview with a man that had a very, very powerful, to me, powerful near-death experience that is a little different than other people's near-death experiences. And that's what I look for that. I don't try to bring people on that have done 50,000 interviews on everybody else's channel. I want new people, new experiences, not the same thing, you know, that is already circulating. So I try to look for people that haven't been over interviewed, I guess you could say.
Hmm. So, is there like one final word you'd like to leave with the audience before we close out?
Yes, love everybody and forgive even those who have and is the worst, considered the worst of the worst. Just love God, love yourself, and love your enemies. That's my message.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on today. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.